Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And let's see, now I'm sharing my video. I think. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. 2 down. And okay.
Oh,
Hey guys, how are you?
good.
Good. Okay, so the session starts at 12, so I think we have a couple of minutes, but I don't know. Abigail, it looks like you're the moderator. Do you know, did we have people sign up for or register for the session? Do we know how many are going to attend?
I'm not entirely sure. This was a part of like the Family Week, virtual Family Week QWM is doing.
Okay.
So it was open to like parents and students to join, so I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, great. Cindy, did you have your hand raised, or I don't know if you had a question. All right, well, Eula and Jasmine, just so you know, I'm going to start out and just go through our entire presentation, and then I'll open it up to both of you just to share your experiences, and then we'll open it up to questions for everyone.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to give it another minute or two to wait for a couple more people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We have a few of you who've joined already, so I don't want to keep you waiting. So yeah, well, welcome. My name is Kate Betka. I am a study abroad coordinator with UWM's Center for International Education. And first of all, I want to just apologize and acknowledge my leasing office decided right now would be a great time to do some lawn maintenance outside my windows. So I apologize if there is some distracting lawnmower noises. I'll do my best to speak loudly and clearly and put myself on mute when I'm not speaking. But we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, I just want to talk briefly about, I understand we have, students and family members in the audience today, and here to learn a little bit more about study abroad and why study abroad is important and why it should be a part of either your or your students' undergraduate or graduate degree path. And at the Center for International Education, we truly believe that study abroad is one of the most transformative experiences a student can have during their undergraduate career. It's great for language immersion. It also fosters an understanding and belief that global citizenship is valuable. It pushes students' boundaries and builds confidence. And we believe that the cross-cultural experience is absolutely vital to learning and openness and understanding, and that it fosters independence. And of course, it's just a heck of a lot of fun. So these are some of the reasons why we believe study abroad is important. And we also want to talk about what study abroad actually means. Sometimes I think there's a perception that study abroad is like a vacation and just a whole lot of fun with less emphasis on the study aspect. But study abroad does mean earning academic credit. So any study abroad program taken at UWM or through an accredited institution, the student is earning academic credit while learning in another country. And this can be done on site or virtually as well. And UWM has a number of different ways that students can do this. We offer a ton of different types of program options. We have short-term study abroad programs, which are typically, they take place in either the January term or the summer term, and they are anywhere from 10 days to 8 weeks. And often they are where the student will travel in a group with maybe 10 to 15 other students from UWM, and the group is led by a UWM professor or faculty leader. So you're traveling together, group in either one or multiple countries. You're earning anywhere from 3, 6, and sometimes even 9 credits, and these are shorter term programs. And these are some of our more popular programs just because they're shorter term and they fit really nicely into alternate terms. But we also have a number of more traditional semester or year-long exchanges and study abroad programs, as well as shorter term independent study options. You can also intern abroad, or you can intern and study at the same time. And then in recent months, of course, with the global pandemic, we've seen a number of virtual international study and internship opportunities pop up. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail about those later on. But really, there's a lot of different options. And what we do at the Center for International Education is really help students select the program that's going to be the best fit for them. So I mentioned virtual study opportunities. So these are online experiences, and the format kind of depends on the type of experience. So there is the hybrid format where you're combining a number of different educational experiences into one program. You could there's the format that's primarily online and can include an in-person trip either at the end of the program or in the middle of the program. Others might be entirely virtual, and the student might be taking courses online with a hands-on remote internship. So they might be working with employers in countries across the globe. And then some programs are conducted in a foreign language while others are in English. So one thing I really like to emphasize especially for those who are just, taking the first step into learning more about study abroad, is it absolutely does not require you to know another language. There are many, many program options that can be done in English, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're limited to just going to English-speaking countries. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But in all of these opportunities, there's the opportunity to earn academic credit and internship credit as well. So the format of some virtual programs, as I mentioned, does vary. So sometimes a student might be responsible for finding an internship on their own through personal networks. There are also placement providers that can help students find an internship. Students could be working on individual projects or with a team remotely through a provider. And sometimes, as I mentioned, the hybrid model, the student may go in person for like a meeting or a project, but do most of the work from home. And then other internships, as I mentioned, are going to be done in the foreign language, while others will be in English. And sometimes you can also earn credit by taking a course alongside the internship as well, a course or two alongside the internship. So there's just, there's really a ton of flexibility with virtual internships, and it's a great opportunity, especially, now given a lot of the uncertainty with travel, it's a great opportunity to continue to get that global foundation and to get that intercultural experience and cross-cultural communication skills and building your network and things like that. It's also a great opportunity if your student maybe is a little bit hesitant to go abroad for a longer period of time, and they just want to kind of dip their toe in the water a little bit with an international experience. The virtual internship or study experience can be a great way to do that. If you're interested in learning more about virtual options, we do have some testimonials on our website. We did have some students do some virtual study abroad programs over this past summer, and so we have a couple testimonials listed on our website. So why study abroad? Well, one of the main reasons is, of course, to earn credit towards your major or degree. And of course, to develop that cross-cultural understanding and also grow personally. Study abroad is an experience that really challenges the individual and really causes them to think more concretely about their identity and what it is. It also, at least for me personally and a number of other people I know who have done study abroad, it can have a huge impact on where you go with your degree and where you enter your career. So it really broadens the possibilities and expands your opportunities. I mentioned you don't have to know another language to study abroad, which is absolutely true. But if you are looking for that immersive language experience, there is no better way than to study abroad for a long period of time, at least a couple of, a semester or a year. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning, when I studied abroad, when I was an undergrad, I spent a year in Germany, and I was going for the language immersion. So I was studying German language and culture. And I would say, after the year passed, my language skills dramatically improved, much, much more than they would have had I just continued to study at home in the United States. But study abroad is also an opportunity to enhance your academic and professional resume. There are a lot of things to consider in order to get the most out of your study abroad program and experience. And I like to tell students it's a lot like choosing the right university to go to. So if they think back about what they were looking for when they were thinking of what college to go to, they probably considered a lot of the academic offerings of the university, maybe the location of the university, and this all can translate into choosing the right study abroad program. Some students, me for example, know exactly where they want to study, what country they want to go to. Other students are really a lot more open and are more interested in the types of experience they can have, as opposed to really dead set on a specific country. So there's different academic offerings depending on the program. If they're looking for either an on-site or a virtual experience. what kind of location they might be looking for. Perhaps they really want to stay in, an urban center, or maybe they'd be more comfortable staying in a more rural area. And then, of course, language abilities. So we do also have different types of programs that I mentioned earlier, and some are more independent. I talked a little bit about those faculty-led programs where you're traveling in a group with a faculty leader, and most of every day is decided for you. There are excursions planned, there are courses scheduled, you're traveling with a group. It's a very busy schedule, and all of the housing and things like that are kind of set up and taken care of for you in advance. But there's also a lot of independent opportunities. If your student is interested in maybe enrolling at an international university and taking courses that way with other local students or other international students. And they can have a little bit more guidance and flexibility as far as finding their own housing. There may not necessarily be planned excursions with groups of other students. So these are a little bit more independent opportunities. And that's certainly not to say that your student will ever be alone. There's always, of course, us at the Center for International Education, but we also work very closely with the international universities we send students to, and they have their own international centers for international education that help incoming international students. So there is always some kind of support, and we do prepare our students very well for going abroad. And then, of course, cost can be a factor too. Study abroad does not have to be unaffordable. There are absolutely options that are more affordable, and there are options that where you get, so to speak, more bang for your buck. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to pay for study abroad in a little bit. But one thing I wanted to mention is that, for students planning to study abroad, it's really important that they work with their academic advisor to kind of plan out when the best time would be to go abroad based on their degree program. Typically, we like to see students have 2 semesters at UWM prior to their first semester abroad. So, if they start in the fall, the earliest we'd like to see them study abroad would be the following summer. And that's not to say that there aren't exceptions. There are absolutely exceptions. But study abroad is a very different experience, and we like to see that students have a couple of semesters of university under their belt before they embark on a new experience abroad. There's other things to consider too as far as timing. There are some degree programs, I'm thinking specifically nursing majors. They can't study abroad when they're doing their clinical rotation in hospitals. So a lot of nursing majors will study abroad during their sophomore year or during a winter or summer term. And the nursing program at UWM does offer a number of short-term study abroad opportunities where they're earning nursing credit. So that's an option too. Will study abroad delay graduation? It really doesn't have to, and this is why I said it's important to sit down with the academic advisor and kind of plan out and let them know that you want to study abroad and when would be a good time for them to do so based on the courses that they have to take to meet their major requirements. We do have a lot of students who, say they want to study abroad for a semester. They'll work with their academic advisor to sort of clump elective credits together in one semester, and then take all those elective credits abroad at an international university and have them transfer back. So sit down with your academic advisor and let them know you want to study abroad, and then work with us at CIE to find a program that's going to help you meet your graduation requirements. So how to finance study abroad? This is a big question that we get from a lot of students. And like I said, it's not necessarily more expensive than even studying for a semester at UWM. There's similar things students have to consider, such as how much they spend on groceries and the cost of living, depending on what city they go to. For example, Tokyo, Japan, that has a very, very high cost of living, especially compared to something like in Peru or South America, which might have a lower cost of living. So that can impact how expensive a study abroad program can be. And then there's also different types of programs. So if you're going on a program run by a program provider that schedules excursions for the student, that arranges their housing, that provides meal plans, that has tons and tons of on-site support, that might be a little bit more expensive than doing a university exchange where the student has more responsibility for finding their own housing and grocery shopping and things like that. So there's a lot of different factors that can impact the cost of a study abroad program. But there's also a lot of different ways to pay for that program too. So it is study abroad is an academic program. Students are earning credit, so they are able to use the same financial aid that they would use during a normal semester at UWM on their program abroad. So the Pell Grant, federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans, and of course academic scholarships can be used for study abroad as well. And there are tons of scholarships. Some are specifically for study abroad, others are academic scholarships that can be used on study abroad as well. Some are need-based, some are ability-based, others are academic performance-based, and then some are dependent on the country your language study. So there are a lot of different opportunities for scholarships. And then, of course, we encourage students to consider their personal funds too. We do have a number of students every year who are really successful in doing their own Kickstarter or GoFundMe campaigns and, kind of garnering support from their family and community members to help them make their study abroad dreams come true. But we do have a number of financing study abroad 101 information sessions that we hold regularly throughout the year. And these are put on by our financial specialist and then a financial aid advisor from the Office of Financial Aid at UWM. And they go into detail about the different funding options, grants and loans and scholarships again. And then they also go into detail about how to budget for different study abroad programs. So we do have all of our budget information available on our website. We try to be as transparent as possible about the cost of study abroad. And so individual program budgets are available on our website, so you can kind of see what costs that you need to consider, whether it's airfare or housing, program fees, and things like that. So all of that is available on our program brochure pages. As far as how to get started when thinking about study abroad, I know for a lot of students it can kind of feel a little overwhelming even to just get started. So the first thing I would say is if they're not sure but they're interested in study abroad, start with us at CIE. They can give us a call. We have walk-in advising Monday through Friday from 12 to 2. They can also send us an email, and we can help them just get started and help them narrow down different program types and program options. That's exactly what we're here for. We also encourage them to, again, meet with an academic advisor and to discuss the timing and academic planning. For students who are thinking, maybe down the line they want to study abroad, not necessarily right away, we do encourage them to keep their grade point average high. Some programs do have different GPA requirements that range from 2.0, 2.5, some are even 3.0. So keep that GPA high. And also, we do, as part of the application process, we ask students for an academic recommendation from a professor or instructor they've had in a course before. So it's always a good idea to develop those relationships early on and develop a rapport with their instructors, so that when it comes time down the line to ask for a recommendation, they know that they can go to a particular instructor and ask them to help them out. You can explore program options on our website. It's studyabroad.uwm.edu, and there is an advanced search function, so you can search by country, you can search by term, by academic area of interest, a lot of different ways you can search, find what we do offer at UWM. I will mention that students are not limited to just options that UWM hosts. Students can go on non-UWM programs as long as it's from an accredited institution and accepts outside students. We do have a coordinator in our office that works specifically with non-UWM programs. So if your student is interested in learning about those options, they will still work through our office, particularly to get financial aid and to make sure credits transfer the way that they want them to. But they aren't limited just to UWM programs. That's always just a helpful thing to know. We encourage them to attend a virtual financing study abroad 101 information session, and also research scholarships and their deadlines well in advance. Many scholarships will have earlier deadlines than we have at UWM for the study abroad application. So just keeping that in mind is helpful. And then students can get started by getting a passport. Right now, we are hearing from the State Department that passport applications are very delayed, even by months, and it can take months in the first place to get them, just considering the current pandemic situation, and they weren't processing passport applications for a while. So things are a bit delayed now, so I would encourage any student to just go ahead and submit a passport application. They are valid for 10 years. So even if you don't end up studying abroad at UWM, which of course I hope they do, the passport is still valid. So it's a good investment. I think it runs roughly $150, $160 for the application. But again, it's good for 10 years. And it's just a good idea to get started on it just because of the delay we're seeing. So once travel does resume again, you'll be ready to go with that passport in hand. As far as support abroad, I know we get a number of family members and parents learn about health insurance and support while abroad. And so there are a number of different things that UWM does. First of all, any student who studies abroad at UWM is enrolled in comprehensive international health insurance through CISI, that's Cultural Insurance Services International. It's mandated by the UW system, so any student in the UW system who studies abroad is enrolled in health insurance, and for the duration of the time that they're abroad. There is always some kind of on-site staff or support. So if you're traveling on a faculty-led program, you have that UWM faculty member and often a UWM assistant on the program, as well as on-site staff, either through our partner vendors or our international universities. We also hold both a general and site-specific pre-departure orientations, and this is where we talk about behavior expectations, academics, finances, but also health and safety considerations depending on which country your student is going to. We provide country-specific emergency contact information prior to departure. We also use several intelligence organizations. So Alert Traveler is one way we use national intelligence organizations. It's an app that we have students download prior to departure, and it's GPS enabled, and so it sends security alerts based on the student's actual GPS location, or if they have GPS disabled, it's based on their itinerary. So it's real-time alerts. So if there's, for example, a hurricane expected to make landfall near where the student is, that student will get notified with information about how to be safe depending on what the alert is. There's also 24/7 CIE support. So we do have an emergency call rotation at our office. So if a student is in distress or something happens and they need our support, we're always on call for that to liaise with our on-site partners and staff. And then we also encourage students to enroll in the U.S. State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. So why not you? Why not now? Explore the possibilities. Study abroad is often a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and there's no better time to do it. You can check out our website, as I mentioned, studyabroad.uwm.edu, or email us at overseas@uwm.edu if you have more questions. We're more than happy to speak to students and family members with questions. And we also encourage you to connect with us on social media. Now, this sounds like the end of my presentation, but it's not, because I do have a couple of study abroad alumni with me here today who would love to share their experiences with you. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and share a little bit about their study abroad opportunities, and then I'm going to open it up for questions in the chat. So Jasmine and Violetta, I will let you each introduce yourselves, and if you wouldn't mind just sharing with us, tell us about your experience, where you studied, why you chose your program, how long you studied, and that sort of thing. I might ask a couple of questions too after you each introduce yourselves.
Hi, well, my name is Violeta Ramirez. I'm a recent graduate. I graduated this past August, actually. I studied abroad in Suwon, South Korea at Aju University for the academic year of 2017 and 18. And yeah, there you go. Jasmine?
My name is Jasmine Viges, and I graduated last December. I did my study abroad in Hong Kong at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. So I actually did a non-UWM program. And I also did an internship in Guatemala in January as well.
Awesome, thank you. So Violetta, why did you choose to study in South Korea?
That's actually a long story, but the reason I ended up going to South Korea is because ever since, like the short version anyway, is that in high school, I actually gained the interest in learning Korean. But as a high school student and my high school, they didn't offer that language at all. So I ended up doing independent study. I still consider myself very beginner level, but at least I understand more now than I used to, especially from being abroad for that period. And from doing that, it really motivated me to want to keep learning, and it made me realize I actually knew more of the basics than I thought that I did. So it made it a lot easier too while I was there to just get around, where with my program it wasn't necessary to know the language to be there, because actually all my courses were taught in English. But my class was set up with all Korean students, but they were Korean students that had the English level that was to the point, to be able to take academic courses all in English. So that was really interesting to see. But yeah, so from there, it was just mostly just wanting to enhance my language skills. I had a huge interest in the culture and the history. So when I was actually there, it really opened up my eyes of like, wow, I'm actually here. Like it's no longer in the book. Like I'm actually seeing everything that I've read about. So.
How about you, Jasmine?
I chose my program mostly because of the courses that were offered and also the programs that the university offered as well. Um, I was taking Mandarin Chinese at UWM, and even though Hong Kong, their main language is Cantonese, they taught Mandarin at the university, so I was able to continue taking my Mandarin courses, but also take a lot of really interesting science courses as well. And I had seen that the university offered like a Chinese language partner and a bunch of excursions for free if you were a student. So I just thought it would be an awesome place to go and continue both of my studies without falling behind.
What did both of you find the most challenging aspect of studying abroad, or your program in particular, or interning too, if you interned?
For me, it was, I believe, the stages of culture shock. I mean, I know about it and I've heard about it. And before I actually did my academic year, I actually went to community college, and that's where I did my first study abroad experience with a short-term faculty-led program. But that was not the same at all in comparison to being abroad for an academic year, because since it was a short term, it was like more of kind of like a taste of being abroad. Whereas when I did go for the academic year, it was like the roller coaster of emotions and adjusting to everything. What kind of made it a little bit easier is just because I am Mexican American, and because of my family background, we are a collectivistic type of culture and society. So that aspect of being in a homogenous country where everything is collectivistic, that part wasn't too difficult. It was more of just trying to adjust to societal norms and standards. And then with the roller coaster of emotions, it was like my first month was, oh, I love it here. Typical feeling of being happy and loving everything. And then once the second month hit, I was like, okay, I've had enough of this. When can I go home? Why did I do a whole academic year? This is insane. But then I realized the reason I felt like that was because I wasn't having a routine like I did back home. Like, home I was like always work, school, homework, social life. And then now it's like because of the visa I was on, I wasn't allowed to work. So it was also kind of like my first year feeling like an actual college student where I was able to completely enjoy my student life. But because I had work out of the way, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? So then I was like trying to figure out, well, what kind of organizations can I join on campus? What other things can I do on my own? How do I meet people? So it was just that kind of difficulty because societal norms isn't like in the US where, you can go up to someone in your class and maybe like vent or complain, and that's how you become friends eventually. So and when I was in Korea, that's not how it works. So trying to adapt of what making friends is like there was also difficult that I had to adapt to and learn, like, how do I meet people without making them feel overwhelmed or making myself look like the awkward American or some sort, so just trying to adapt to what society does too.
You mentioned your family background. Was your family supportive of your decision to study abroad, or did you have to do a little bit of convincing?
In the beginning, with my community college experience of going abroad, it was interesting because it was split. My mom was very supportive of it. And then my dad was like a huge no. Like, are you kidding me? That's a whole story as well. But in the end, he ended up being supportive about it. It was really rough. But when I did come back from that first abroad experience, I would always kind of like hinted in the conversations like, oh, I'm looking at these programs. Oh, I'm going to go abroad. That my plan is to go in 2 years again. So it's kind of like throwing in little tidbits while we were having conversations or like keeping them up to date of what I was doing with that kind of stuff. So then when it actually came to the point where I was like, oh, I applied to go to Korea for the academic year, it wasn't like a huge shock for them anymore. So they're like, oh, okay, like that's great. Like, who's helping you? So at that point, when it got closer to me actually leaving for my program, my coordinator was Yomari at that time. So I was actually supposed to be Ramona, but because of the language differences with my parents, Yomari was able to help because she speaks Spanish. So they felt a lot better when she was able to discuss with them what was going on. Yes, she has insurance. Yes, she's going to have support even though she's going to be abroad. So that made them feel a whole lot better knowing like she's not completely going by herself per se. So that's what really helped a lot in the end is just me voicing what's going on, keeping them up to date, and then having them having a contact here as well if they ever had questions.
While you were abroad, were you able to stay in touch with your family regularly, or how did you manage that, being away?
So, fortunately, I actually was able to go to China before as well. Actually, before I went to my Korea academic abroad study abroad. So, I actually had an app called WeChat. So my parents kept that the whole time. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second.
It's all right, Jasmine. Well, I'll ask you, what did you find most challenging? Oh, sorry, she's back. I'll let her finish.
Sorry.
It's
So,
okay.
um, yeah, so my parents actually kept that app WeChat throughout my whole study abroad experience. So that's how we always called each other or either did like video chat. And then at first it was kind of weird because I know the time differences were there. But then when we finally got the gist of like, oh, it's this time when I'm waking up or it's this time when you're going to sleep now, so we never had conflicts at that point then of when should we talk on the phone. So when it was like 10 in the morning in Korea, it was like 8 p.m. in the US. So it was always like we were always able to talk. So fortunately, we never had issues with that.
Great, thank you. So Jasmine, what would you say is the most challenging aspect of your study or internship abroad experience?
I would say the most challenging for my study abroad was kind of doing the independent, the non-UWM. Um, I think there are a lot of universities you can work with as a non-UWM where they'll give you lots of support, but I was doing it was called visiting student. So it was very much like almost everything was just me. But I knew that going into, so I made sure to connect with CIE a bunch and my academic advisor back in the States, just to make sure everything was going on. And then even though I wasn't technically study abroad at the university I went to, I reached out to the study abroad office. They reached out to many different offices just to make sure I had the support. So it was difficult finding the people, but in the end, it all kind of worked out because I got connected with many people. I just had to take a little bit extra step than I think most people have to.
Great, and you said that you did an internship in Guatemala. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you did there?
Yeah, so I went with Engineers Without Borders at UWM, and even though I'm not an engineering student, I needed a internship to finish my degree. And since they were doing project related to water, and that's what I'm really interested in, I thought it was a great fit. We went to a small villages in what's called the Shield Triangle, and I was on the community engagement team, so we went to different houses and asking them about what water means to them and how it affects their life. And then the engineering students were actually helping create, they call it a water catchment or uh, but essentially a giant cistern so that all the people in the villages can have access to water at their homes.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So this question is for both of you. How did you pay for your programs?
Mine, I actually, so going back, since I did have that plan of wanting to go abroad again, I knew at this point that my financial aid covered study abroad. So that was something that made me feel relieved. I was like, oh, great, okay, like there is some form I can pay for this then. So before that, since I did have my plan of going abroad, what I did was that I had my savings account. So this is more personal. Is that I created a savings account specifically for study abroad. So while I was working and I was getting paid biweekly, I would save like between 10 to 20% of what I got paid and put it into that savings account. So, by that time I was actually wanting to go abroad. I had some personal money that I could use for what I needed to cover. And then also because I do use loans, so I only take out whatever financial aid gives me, like the federal loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. So whatever each semester, whatever up until that point came back as a reimbursement check of whatever was left over that I didn't touch for financial aid, I actually would save that. So that helped me too as well to accumulate money for the time I would go abroad. I did take out the Parent Plus loan. I know a lot of people are probably iffy about that, but my situation was different, so that's why I was able to take it out under my name rather than my parents' name. And then I actually received the Global Studies Award. So that was a scholarship, and what that did was cover my plane ticket. So how that worked is I paid it out of my own pocket, but they reimbursed it me after. So that helped a lot as well. And just the extra funds that I was able just to collect everything. So to this day, honestly, I don't know how well I planned that out because I actually was able to survive the whole academic year with all the savings and the financial aid money that I was able to accumulate over the time to go for that whole academic year. So I was actually stressed out essentially though of thinking, oh, I'm not going to work while I'm abroad. This is, it shows how hectic life can get of like how you're so used to having that rough life of like I have to go to work and go to school. But fortunately, while I was abroad, I never had issues with money from all my savings and the financial aid that I've gotten.
Great, thank you. Anything to add to that, Jasmine?
Yeah, I paid for most of mine with scholarships, to be honest. I met with Gayla Jenkins when I had an idea of I think I was down to 2 universities at that point, but I met with her and we looked at both the universities and broke down the costs. And she told me all these amazing scholarships I could apply for, or other ways that uh, I could get extra money. And so I talked to CIE and I talked to Gala, and then I just applied. I applied to all the scholarships I think that were relevant to me, that CIE talked about. And I got, I think, 3 scholarships for my study abroad. And then for my internship, I didn't actually think I was eligible at all because I don't speak Spanish. But I was really encouraged to apply for a Latin America and Caribbean Studies scholarship that's offered through UWM, and I got it. So I think it's just a great to know, like, just apply. You never know if you're going to get the scholarship or not, and I was really surprised, and it definitely made a huge impact.
I want to piggy off of that. I think that's very important too, because even for me, um, that's one of the things I regret with like with my funding for study abroad, because I did get discouraged. Like I would apply to scholarships and then I would get, that notice of like, I'm sorry, unfortunately, blah, 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 you're not getting it. And then it just felt discouraging because at that point I was like, well, what am I doing wrong? Or is there something that I could improve on with like how I'm writing, or what is the situation? So at this point, like how Jasmine said, just apply like as many as you can at that point, because you never know which ones you will receive. But the important thing too is like, what's the backup plan? Because you have to consider too, that's not guaranteed. But at least it's good to know that you do have that option too with all the scholarships that there are available.
And the Writing Center will work with students too to help them with their essays, and the essays are really important for scholarships.
Okay, and before I open it up for questions, I just have one last question for the both of you, and that is if you had one piece of advice for either students or families thinking about studying abroad, or families thinking about having their students study abroad, what would it be?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If you have one piece of advice that you would give to students thinking about studying abroad, or a family member thinking about letting their students study abroad, what would it be?
I think my biggest piece of advice at this point, because I know I've talked to a lot of students too about my abroad experience, and the one common thing I always hear is like it's either too expensive or my parents would never let me do that. So I think for both ends would be, even now, if you're not 100% sure if that's the same situation with you, it's like just explore it for now. Like at least get the information now, ask questions, because if you wait, I would say like the last minute when you're starting to think about it, you'll come to realize how many questions will come up, or or you'll run into issues that you didn't think you would run into. So asking all the questions you have now, so by the time you want to study abroad, it's better in the long run. You're not overwhelmed or stressed. And then that I would say looking for a program is the same thing as when you would have been looking for what university am I going to by the time it's your senior year of high school, So it's kind of like that similar idea of, well, how long did it take you to finally figure out I want to go to this university? So if it took you like, let's say the whole academic year, then maybe that's how far in advance you should start considering what should I look into and doing your research. So by the time it does come to the period of when you want to go, you already have all the information, you know where you want to go.
Thanks. How about you, Jasmine? Any pieces of advice?
Yeah, I would say like definitely look into what you want to do and meet with your academic advisor. Even if you don't plan on studying abroad until your senior year and you're a freshman, meet with your academic advisor as a freshman. Tell them where you'd like to go and what you'd like to do, because you want to make sure that, like Kate mentioned before, that you don't kind of lose out on a semester essentially. So if you work early with your academic advisor, you can keep your program going without falling behind. And that's really what I tried to do with mine. So I worked with my academic advisor for like a year before I even went, just to make sure that everything went smoothly. And like Violetta said too, yeah, just like research, find where you want to go, find what classes you want to take, and reach out to people. CIE is there to help, so.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I don't have any other questions for our panelists, so I just wanted to open it up to questions from anyone else. We did get a question from Lorraine about asking about veteran benefits and if they can be used to cover study abroad. And I said the short answer is maybe. It depends on the type of benefit and the study abroad program. I think most often we've seen benefits that are specific to academic costs being used to cover at least part of a study abroad program, not necessarily the whole thing. But the short answer is they can, and our Military Education Benefits Office will be able to look at yours or your student's specific benefit to see if it could be used to cover. You can also contact Gayla Jenkins in financial aid. She's our financial aid liaison, and she can look at a student's specific financial aid package to let them know what can or can't be used to cover study abroad options. Are there any other questions out there? Please feel free to type them in the chat. If not, I will be hanging around. I think this goes until 1 o'clock, so I'll be hanging around at least until then if you had questions that pop up either for me or for our student panelists. And just thank you so much for joining us and for your time. We really appreciate you being here. And again, I'll be hanging out, so if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Thank you, Lorraine. And thank you, Violetta and Jasmine, for sharing your experience today, as always.
It was fun. I enjoy talking about this.
Thanks for having us. It showed before that Tina had raised her hand. I'm not sure.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
Let's see that. Tina, if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat. Or if any of our moderators have questions.
No, but thank you so much for being a part of our virtual family week. We appreciate you doing this presentation, and obviously we recorded it and we're going to share it out. We had a lot of folks indicate that this might not be the best time for them, but they wanted to access the recording, and so certainly we'll share that with all of our family audience. And you know, I think this last slide is great because they can email you, or their students can email you all if they have additional questions. So thank you so much to you and the students for sharing their experiences. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having us, and thanks for letting us know that the recording will be shared out. That's good to know.